Welcome to the 2021 6th Annual Black Sustainability Summit. My name is Maya Jolie, and I am moderating the session today on how clothes are killing the environment. A few things before we get started. Please mute your microphones. We are going to record this session, so please mute to eliminate all background noise. As you join the call, we would love to know who is in the room. Please drop your name and location in the chat. You can trust that all of our presenters are doing solid work. The affiliation with our summit is due to our alignment with their goals and mission. The presentations provided at our summit does not constitute an endorsement of speakers' views, products, or services. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Ms. Tanjuria Willis. As a mom, Ms. Willis wants to see her 7-year-old child thrive in a healthy world. For her to thrive, she needed to make sure there is a world left for her to inherit. If I can do what I can to get this world to zero emissions where she can live and her children can live, then I've met my goal. In order to do that, all of us have to contribute. Ms. Willis created Sustainable Fashion Week to increase consumer knowledge of sustainable and upcycled clothing, educate consumers on how to incorporate sustainable and upcycled clothing into their current wardrobe. Ms. Willis has served as an electrical engineer for a nuclear manufacturing plant for several years before moving it into IT. She is an entrepreneur and started her first magazine with no publishing experience, printing and stapling the first few hundred copies by hand. Ms. Willis is currently utilizing her technology experience to develop an app which will make it easier for people to develop, evolve, and refine their fashion essence. Thank you, Ms. Willis, for your time, and you may now begin sharing your screen.
How's everybody this morning? I'm so glad to be here. This has been amazing, and I'm excited to be presenting to you. So we're going to talk about clothes today. I know all of us have a relationship with them. We wear them every day, mostly. And, I think times have changed a little bit with COVID, but we still wear something. So let's talk about the effects that they're having on you. So we're going to first talk about who am I? So my name is Tanjuria Willis. I am a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro. So HBCU grads, hello. I am a family person. I have a husband, I have a daughter who's 8 years old, and I have a bonus son who is 21 and currently serving in the Army. I am a business owner. I own eCloset LLC, which includes eCloset Designer Consignment and also sustainable lifestyle properties that we do to ensure that we are educating people on how to live more sustainably. I call myself a change maker. I have produced or am producing the first Sustainable Fashion Week here in Atlanta, with the goal of really educating people on how to live more sustainably, how to shop more sustainably, but also the differences in fabrics and sustainable clothing, sustainable focused clothing, as well as providing education and awareness and connecting brands and consumers and department stores together to make those things more accessible. Hobbies. As of late, I am a workaholic, so I haven't been able to enjoy many of my hobbies. However, one of my hobbies, which most people that really know me will know, I love motorcycles and I am a motorcycle rider. I also love hanging out with my 8-year-old daughter. She keeps me young and she keeps me laughing, and she is my motivation for everything. So let's talk about the good old days. Let's get into it. So back in the good old days, most of you know, and and before I get started, if you have a question, please feel free. You can jump in, or if Maya can see the chat, because I can't see the chat, she can let me know if there's a question needs to be answered, and I definitely will try my best to do that. So the good old days, let's talk about that. What we did when I was growing up. When I was growing up, almost every household had a sewing machine in it. And whether that sewing machine was utilized to completely make wardrobes and clothing or just to mend, every household had a sewing machine. My mom, your mom. And that's what we used. So clothing was made from a different quality. We sold a lot of that stuff. A lot of those things were made at home. We were seasonal shoppers. We shopped time to go to school. There was shopping, fall, summer, things like that. We were seasonal shoppers, and we had budgets. We kept a budget. We knew that during this time of the year, this was the budget we were going to spend on our clothing, and that's what we did. And then bigger than that, we did family sharing. So if you had large household, you passed them down. You passed them down to relatives. You always kept them circulating within the family structure if it was possible to do so. And then we repair the items. The items were quality enough that we could repair them. Now, the family sharing, we'll talk about a little bit. We'll talk about a little bit later as well, because it had some thoughts that shifted our thinking and our mind when we shop, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But those were the ways that our clothing affected our lives back in the day. What changed? What changed was consumption. We're a land of we want more all the time. And so with the turn of the Industrial Revolution, clothing became more, the manufacturing plants increased for clothing. And then that's when you started hearing the term of sweatshops. Sweatshops became very prevalent. And so then with the increase of consumption, you have 80 billion garments produced every year. And whereas we used to have collections, brands coming out with new collections twice a year per season, which is why when you hear a fashion week event, you hear of them being 2 times a year for fall winter looks and for spring summer looks. Well, now we've got brands coming out releasing what they call micro collections, and they're releasing them every week. And so there's this huge consumption that we do now for new things, or what we consider new things. We're currently producing about 400% more clothing than we did 10 years ago. Just think about that, 400% more clothing. Where on average, now we wear garments a max potentially of 7 times before we're ready to give them away. Where clothing used to last us years and years, and we had clothing for 10, 20 years. The only time we would give them away is if our sizes changed. So all of these things have affected how we view our clothing. So in that, we have the textile waste that is generated, which is astronomical, and how women are now changing their wardrobes and don't even wear a majority of it. And so those are all things that have an effect on how we currently shop. So what that did with the consumption, with the turn of the Industrial Revolution and the manufacturing plants increasing, so then you have all of these lower wage environments for people where they can't really survive sufficiently, and then it puts us deep into poverty. Not sure if you remember the Rana Plaza garment factory in 2013 that collapsed in Bangladesh. Those workers were earning about 30 euros a month, which is equivalent to about $35 per month. Can you imagine surviving on that? And then you look at Cambodia, which accounts for 80% of most of that country's exports. the Ethiopia Garment District factories, which are places like Guess and H&M and Calvin Klein use, those people are earning around approximately about $26 a month. And then you have India, who is the 6th largest exporter, and Pakistan, who's the 4th largest global export of cotton and the 8th of textile products in Asia. Now, what's the common denominator in them? Most of these are in our brown and Black communities, which is what is typically happen, which is where our landfills are located, and all of these things, the toxic waste that is being accounted for in all of these factories. That's where all of this is happening. It's near our communities. And that's why it's so important. And that's why it's kept so quiet in most times too. So with all of that and all of these things added together, we then start fast fashion, because again, as I said in the beginning, we want more. We want more, we want more. Everything is about more. So let's talk about fast fashion. What is fast fashion? Fast fashion is basically trendy clothing. What happened 20 years and actually started more than 20 years ago, where brands would mimic and replicate ideas from that they would take from the catwalk or from celebrity culture. As you know, if you look on social media now, everyone's trying to see what that celebrity is wearing and how they can replicate it. But they take those samples, they take those ideas, and they basically replicate it. And they replicate it in these manufacturing plants, which I just talked about, that can turn them over fast. So you take a designer that has created a collection, shows it on a runway, but typically those collections are not going to be available yet because it's for the next season. So they haven't gotten to they haven't started manufacturing. I'm just going to admit this. They haven't started manufacturing yet because they're on a cycle. Well, these fast fashion companies, they take those ideas, they may tweak one thing and copy it, and then they turn it out within 15 days to 2 weeks. And there's and they put it on the floor, they put it on in their stores. And so then people are flocking to get those because one, they saw it on the runway, or they saw something similar on the runway, so they want it. And so it does a lot for the environment. One, it's putting all these faulty clothes out there in the environment, but two, you're also in the taking of the ideas, you're also hurting these brands, because now the very thing that they just showed to put out to their customers is now being replicated and diminished in a cheaply made way. And so then that hurts that brand and that company. And that's why you see some of the bigger ones struggling to stay afloat and to keep up with that. And then they start to turn to fast fashion. And so it becomes cyclical. So that's kind of how it started. And their goal is to get the newest styles on the market as fast as possible. And they do it through lots of ways. And then social media plays a huge part in that, because so social media is an instant gratification medium. And so with social media, people are putting pictures in there, putting their perception of who they are and these new clothing. And we go out and we look at it and we're saying, oh, I want that, I need this now. And so then we turn to those channels, we end up turning to social media to get our fast fashion ideas, to see what the next person is wearing, because we want to be like the Joneses or whoever. And so that starts to increase the production of that. And so because these companies can mass produce these things with quick turnaround for very cheap cost, we don't tend to look at that. We just want it now. And so we continue to support it, not really looking at the effects of the entire supply chain that is part of that process. And so they're able to offer it to us. They offer us countless collections, which now we're like, oh, we've got something new, the first thing on the market. We're the first ones to wear it. So because they do that, and because they're constantly creating these new collections, we're constantly wanting the next best thing, because now what was there last week is now out of date. So that encourages us to continue buying more. And then it creates more production and more consumption. And we end up throwing out the last thing for the new thing. So what does that do? That increases our closet. Our closets have gotten so much bigger over the years. Think about the closet that you had growing up and the closet that you have now. And in most cases, none of us could survive on the closet that we had years ago. Mentally, we would say, we were very minimalistic in those years, whereas now we feel like it's never enough. I have to have, these many pairs of shoes and different things. So sorry, I thought my phone was on do not disturb. So it creates a monster in our closet of things that we have that we've just consumed, and probably in most cases don't even wear. And most of those things that we're buying are not of high quality. They are cheaply made. They immediately, you can't wash them. You wash them, you try to take care of them, they're immediately faded or worn. And then the trends change so quickly that we're like, oh, well, I wore that last week. Someone saw me on social media with that on last week, or I wore that yesterday. I can't wear that again. So now we're continuing to buy, and we're continuing to consume, and we're continuing to purchase. And when all in all, the clothes that are making, because they're so cheaply made, the brands are now making them for basically a one-use wear. And so once you wear it, you wash it, it's basically done. And so it's like, move on to the next. So I'm going to do a quiz, and I can't see chat. So Maya, I'm going to ask you to kind of help me with this one. So quick quiz. How much water do you think it takes to make a t-shirt and a pair of jeans? And Maya, if you could just throw out a couple of answers that you see in the chat, and then I'll pop up the answer for you and see if it matches with what you think.
We have an answer that said 4 gallons, 10 gallons, 300 gallons, 5 gallons, 18 ounces.
Oh, okay. Are you guys ready for this answer? I wish I could see all of your faces when you see this. 1,500 gallons of water to manufacture one t-shirt and one pair of jeans. That's about equivalent to about 13 years of drinking water. I know, it's amazing. It takes about 400 gallons alone for one t-shirt. That's one t-shirt. And then we're not even talking about the dyes and the chemicals that are released into the water to change the colors and to do the whitewashing and to do all of those things. So what brands are considered fast fashion? I know you know some of them, and you're probably saying some of them in the chat. Um, do you see any in the chat, Maya?
We have H&M,
Mm-hmm.
Sheen,
Mm-hmm. Oh, someone knows Sheen. Okay, awesome.
Levy, Quest,
Mm-hmm. So we've got H&M, and this is just a few. There's so many of them. Captain Old Navy, Zara, Forever 21, Fashion Nova, Urban Outfitters, Romwe, somebody said that, Sheen, Nasty Gal, Misguided, ASOS, Anthropology, Free People. So this is just a few. This is just what I could fit on my slide. But I mean, there are several others, and I'm sure you probably named several others in the chat. But this is when you go into these stores, understand that you're buying items that in some way contributes to the fast fashion industry. So how does this affect our environment? Most of you may have heard, I don't know if you haven't, textiles are the #2 pollutant to our landfills. Where are our landfills located? Typically closest to brown and Black communities. And so that in itself should make you think twice about the clothing that you have. You'll probably look at your closet. Oh, I need to go back. Sorry. Can I go back? I think I need to. There we go. Sorry. And therefore, we need to think twice about that. So typically, these clothing are made from synthetic materials. That's part of the problem. And then double that with the dyes and the chemicals that are included in making them and that are in the clothing when you make them. So when you throw those clothes away, or even if you keep trying to wash them or clean them or do things, as the garments degrade, chemicals are releasing pollutants into not only the water systems, but the wildlife, but into your body as well. So they're releasing those chemicals you have on a shirt, those chemicals are releasing into your body. And so then you wonder, we can talk about that as well, why we're getting sick on different levels, why our kids are growing so much, why their feet are bigger, or these are different than we used to be 20 years ago. All of these things are related, and nobody wants us to know it, but they're all related. Textiles account for about 10% of all global carbon emissions that are emitted into the air. So, our breathing water, the asthmas, all of those things are directly affected. We're directly affected by that. And they're the second largest polluter of clean water. Now, cotton is a funny one because cotton overall is not a bad textile. It's not a bad fabric. However, the growing process accounts for more than 11% of global pesticides that are used in cotton. So let's talk about the fabrics. So these are the most toxic fabrics, the 6 most toxic fabrics that are made now. And all of these, I'm sure, are in your closet. I would love to know if you went to your closet now to see how much of those things you have of each in your closet. It's probably 90% of your closet that is a lot of these fabrics, or a mix or a blend of these fabrics. So polyester. Polyester is made from synthetic polymers. And what's interesting about that is if you break synthetic polyester down, um, in a reuse standpoint, as I work on sustainability quite a bit, from a reuse standpoint, it would break down to plastic. And so that's what you're breaking down. And that's what you're wearing. And it's made, with acids and alcohols. You've got rayon, which is actually made from a recycled wood pulp, but however, is treated with chemicals and acetones and acids that just to make it survive and be able to wash it. So just so you can have a processed garment that you can wear more than once. Acrylic. It's full of chemicals that can cause cancer. This is according to the EPA. You've got nylon, again, laundry list of chemicals that are involved in nylon. Then you have acetate, again, made from wood fibers, but again, the processing, the chemicals that it takes to process it, to produce it, it's not worth it. So how do we change that? We'll talk about that. So with that going into the environment, the second most problematic thing that affects the environment when it comes to clothing in textiles is the unfair labor practices. We talked about earlier in the conversation about the manufacturing plants and the living wages. Well, these people, in their effort to survive, they're continuing to work in these dangerous environments for very, very low wages. Some of these countries may use child labor. They don't allow women to take adequate bathroom breaks because of the manufacturing deadlines that they have. Some of them force women to take contraceptives, because they don't want to lose their workers to a pregnancy. The living wage issues amplifies like denial of maternity leave if they do have a baby, inadequate sanitation, clean working environments, and toxic air, sexual harassment. That's just to name a few. These are all practices, and these are all part of the ecosystem of ethical brands. They make commitments to be able to address all of these things, to address their policies, address their living wages, address their labor practices, address their water usage, all of those things. But it not only affects us, it also affects animals, which then indirectly affects us, especially if we eat, if we're not vegetarian and we eat foods that have chemicals and even pescatarians, because through the water contamination, our marine life is also affected. But we have the toxic dyes and microfibers that are released, and then it trickles down into the food chain, which puts not only the animal welfare at risk, it's putting us at risk because we're consuming these things. There has been cases reported where fur, including cat and dog fur, has been passed off as faux fur. So what they have is they have these fur farms that in itself has very bad conditions, where they take this fur and they're using this fur and scalping the animals and creating and passing them off as faux fur to companies. And so that has been an increasing issue as well, because they can they can buy those cheaper. You can buy that cheaper than you can is at these fur farms. You can produce them cheaper than you can real and with real fur instead of faux fur. So that's been an issue as well. What does that have as far as we're concerned? It encourages us to continue this throwaway culture, which is horrible in itself. But it also, from a psyche standpoint, it makes us feel like we need to shop more. We need to stay on top of the trends. We've got to look good in the latest stuff. She saw me in this last week. I had on that dress or those shoes a month ago at an event similar. All of those things, it creates this constant sense of need. We need more, we need more. And we're dissatisfied with what we have and making that work. And really, it affects our creativity because there used to be a time where we were creative with our clothes. We could mix and match. We could, do different things with them. But now we are constantly, I have to wear it. It's on the mannequin. Just give me that whole outfit because we buy it so cheaply. And then the financial impact on our household bottom line is astronomical. When we buy these clothes, they've made them so cheap. And so it's very similar to if you had a $20 bill and you had five $1 bills and you go into a store, you're going to spend those $1 bills faster than you will your $20 bill. It's the same effect. We do that. We don't budget like we used to. 20, 30 years ago, when we were growing up, we had a budget for our clothing. We were going school shopping. We were going winter shopping. We had a budget that we spent. But now, because we see it in our minds as it's only $5 here, this shirt only costs $10. It's $9.99. It's under $10. Let's go ahead and get that. Let's get that. I can get that. It's just $10. And so when we add that up over the months and look at how much more we're spending on clothing because we haven't taken into effect that each one of those $5 and $9.99 adds up really quickly. We're spending so much more money now on our clothing. And so overall, it has that effect on us. So what can we do about it? First, we can be aware of what we're wearing. Be aware, know what you're wearing, know the labels, take the time to understand who the brands are. Choose local brands. If you have local brands in your neighborhoods, in your city, choose local brands. That's one way, and understand because you can develop a relationship with them. Commit to shopping secondhand. Now, I know I said we were going to mention this before, where we talked about family sharing. And so with the family sharing, I talked about committing to committing to shopping hand. When we were talking about family sharing, one of the things that a lot of people said once they grew up was, I always had hand-me-downs, and so I don't want to shop secondhand anymore. And I just want new stuff. So I have this mantra that I say with all my friends, and I tell them, think about it this way. When you go to a department store and you try on a dress and it has on a tag, are you telling me that no one has ever tried that dress on, which means you're wearing something someone else has tried on? Are you telling me that no one has potentially even returned that dress, which you're wearing something that someone else has had? And so ultimately, there is no case when you're not really shopping secondhand. The difference is you know it up front and you're not paying retail prices for it. So just think about that when you're thinking about shopping more. Read the labels. Labels and brands should be transparent. Know what the brand stands for. Know what the brand, if the brand, they should be able to tell you their sustainability practices. They should be able to tell you how they're using water, if they're recycling their water, if they're using reduced water tactics. They should be able to tell you about their manufacturing processes, their policies, how they treat their workers, all of those things. It's up to us to do our part to understand who these companies are and to support them. Um, and so think about that. And when you think about that, also think about, because I know some people say, well, this buying this way is really expensive. In the grand scheme of things, it's really not, because now you're buying quality. Whereas if you took and you averaged out how much you spent on the fast fashion, cheaper things that you buy to that one or two quality things, I assure you that it would be equivalent, or you would probably be spending less on the sustainable items. Purchase goods from companies that use biodegradable materials, and it should say so. The fabrics that are biodegradable, more biodegradable, organic cottons, hemp, bamboo, silk, things like that, that if it broke down, it would go back and it would not contaminate our climate. Take care of your clothing, and then responsibly donate them when it's time. And when I say responsibly donate them, understand again, and it goes back to your local, understand who you're donating them to. I know we like to take, bags and bags and bags of clothing to those large box donation centers, but understand that those large box donation centers, only 15% of them wind up in their stores for sale. 85% of those end up either incinerated or in a landfill. 85% of the things that are donated end up in a landfill or incinerated. And, to their, in defense of them, in some way, they get a lot of things. And so, it may be difficult for them to fit, but they can figure out another alternative solution to just throwing them out into the landfill or incinerating them. So take that into consideration and donate to your local shelters or local missions or human trafficking, people that will utilize those things the way that you intend them to be utilized. And I know it's convenient to just drop them off at the big box, but I'll ask you to think about that. Where can you find me? A couple places. I am in Atlanta. My emails are on here. So if you have any questions, definitely you can email me. eCloset, we have the designer show, the pre-owned design showroom, where we sell secondhand or previously loved, as I like to say, items. And then Sustainable Fashion Week, which Maya mentioned in the beginning of the conversation. I am producing the first Atlanta Sustainable Fashion Week. It will be October 28th through the 30th. We will have amazing international panelists. So it'll be a day of education, runway shows, shopping.